Now, why do we pay tax? That's what reasons why we pay tax. I'll come. Get set. Now you ask yourself, why do you pay tax? Reasons for paying tax. Why? Why do I pay tax? Why do you pay tax? Why do your companies pay tax? Tell me. 1. Reasons for imposition of tax. 1. Government imposes tax for several reasons, but primarily the tax is levied for the following reasons. 1. You have raised revenue. Government cannot run its revenue from his own personal salary. In fact, it is from the revenue that they collected from companies, from individuals, that the government takes its own salary. So that is how important it is. Okay. So 1, revenue, raised revenue. Tax is imposed by government in order to raise revenue to execute its various expenditure. Okay. Now talking about capital expenditure, recurrent expenditure, overhead one, and so on and so forth. So that's just it. Now, government spends a lot of money on education. You see now, on education, defense, health, administration, etc. And substantial part of the money comes from tax. From tax. Okay? Substantial part of it comes from tax. Okay? Now, 2. Why do we pay tax, or why do government impose tax on people or companies? It's because 2. Number 1, economic management. Tax is an important instrument for economic management. Economic which is witnessing instability can be managed with tax. For instance, when an economy is heated with inflation, taxes on incomes can be increased, hereby reducing money in circulation. In the same way, when there is deflation in the economy, taxes on income can be reduced, thereby releasing more money into circulation to balance economy. What this is trying to say is that this economic management, I think, in a way, our government are not being fair here, because inflation. Now you are increasing tax. Of course, the consumers are now bearing. We are heated with a lot of burden here. The consumers, the poor ones, are now bearing the burden of the inflation here. The companies are folding. Everything is going down. People are lamenting. The companies are heated with a lot of expenses, more than 200%. So in that case, which means the inflation now, what they say is that the government will now, which means based on this, we can say that our government has to be asked questions here. So we need to know companies are paying tax, individuals are paying their own, and there's inflation. So what they're saying is that the government can now manage economy through the either increase tax as a result of inflation. Then if there's a deflation, it will now reduce tax as a result of. So what we have here, is it a semi or hyperinflation? Is it semi-inflation? What I don't understand what we are doing, what we are going through here in Nigeria. So it is only the government, the professionals, the technocrats that are working with the government that can tell us what's happening here. I am not part of the government for now. So you can go to your drawing board and tell us what's happening. People are lamenting. The government is bleeding. Companies are folding. So there's a lot of try and manage the economy. That's just it. Thank you very much. Then the third one, we have redistribution of income. Now, tax can be employed by government as an instrument of redistributing income among people of a country, particularly where there is wide gap in income distribution. Of course, I think government has to answer this one. There is really a lot of gap here between the rich and the poor. I don't see what we have here is a lot of gap here. So let the government distribute the income here. I think they're working hard on it. Now the fourth one is protection of infant industries, and that's why I fall into. Of course, I have an enterprise since I have not even gotten any job so far. So you have to a kind of protect. You have to protect us, give us small jobs, so that for infants, those of us who have infant industry enterprise who are running it and need jobs, that's where you have to come to help. So you have protection of infant industry, industries or their earlier stage of the development can be protected from harsh competition with the foreign-based industries with the use of tax. That's what we are talking about. That's where Commonwealth tax rate will come in. Okay, we can pamper the Nigerian company. That's why sometimes when there's a job to give in a community, they look for indigenous companies. Unfortunately, some of the indigenous companies are not justifying it. They will just collect their money, buy cars, look for women, go to hotel, and abandon site without executing anything. So the government is looking another way around of the sincere and straightforward indigenous company, so that they will empower them. They empower you, you swallow the money. You refuse to execute the job. It doesn't work that way. So you have to do your own work. You have to work on yourself. Church, they say, begins with you. Work on yourself so that the government can trust you and give you money to work. Okay? Do your job first before you enjoy. That's what it means. So now, this can be done by increasing tariff on imported goods and services, thereby making them costly. That's what we're talking about. Recently, I think some years ago, there's a heavy imposition on importing goods. But I'm always an advocate of agriculture, mechanized. I've been crying, shouting in my own little way, local way, with those who come around me. I always say that population is not a problem in Nigeria. Yes, we have we have good lands, we have valuable land, you have good lands that can help us to get all these things done. Mechanized agriculture, let our employ some of these youths to go into, if the mechanized agriculture, a lot of equipment or a lot of high-tech instruments will be there. It will encourage them. They will be proud to work in the farm. Okay? Then we have food. Feeding first, shelter, before you talk about any other thing in the country. Okay? So what you need to do is that if they impose import, the reason for importation is because there's no alternatives. There are no competitive goods that will compete favorably with that of the foreign, like for example rice. Now, thank God, in the northern part of this Nigeria, a lot of production of industries are raising up, bringing rice, but it's not enough. It's not going round. So let's all hands be on deck, encourage, give incentive, tax waiver for our local farmers, or you come in as the government, we have lands that are wasting, grade them, bring tractors, and let the youth be employed, so that we will divert their attention from being restive because of no food. They say an angry man is a hungry man is always an angry man. If they are working and they are getting gainfully employed and they get their money, they feed their family, of course, there will be little or no rest of the restfulness will reduce. Okay, so that is just it. Okay, so that those importing will find it difficult to import any goods because they have local ones that are competitive. They have rich ones. Okay, so there's no need. So we'll now generate our revenue ourselves. We'll now have enough. Our GDP will rise up, and the economy will be okay. Okay. Now the fifth one is checking of corruption and production of goods. Okay. Now the production and consumption. Checking and consumption. Checking of consumption and production of goods. Okay, the production and consumption of certain goods and services that have health implications are checked with the use of tax. In this case, high tax be levied, imposed on those goods and services in order to discourage their consumption and production. For example, cigarettes, alcohol. These are two major areas where the government is imposing heavy tax. Why? Just to discourage the consumers. They said sometimes you see some of the jingle on cigarettes. Smokers are liable to die young. You see the tag on it, very plain. But some stubborn smokers will they don't want to know if that will kill them. They are addicted. We call it addiction. So what the government do, these tools, is they impose heavy tax on that to discourage the consumers because they are dangerous to health. Okay, that is one of those this thing. Now, to tell the reason for imposition of tax. Okay, now we shall go further for another one. Now, those are the reason why government imposes tax on individuals and companies.